Upstairs at Froelich show one. Okay. Upstairs at Froelich show 118, reel 1.
And what did it to me was these big titties she had. For a 13-year-old girl, man, she wouldn't have had to worry about no titties for the rest of her life, boy. You know, she was set and she was looking good, son.
That's the truth, baby.
Firewalker. That's
we have the tale of the Indiana Jones knockoffs.
Indiana Jones and the Raiders knockoffs. Let's call it that. All right, Firewalker. This is the last one I watched. I watched this one yesterday. We watched it.
You and me both.
Right. We watched it for dinner because it's kind of a harmless movie, so we had Regan in there watching it with us. Really, it is very harmless, actually, if you compare it to Raiders, which had graphic violence and lots of gore and guts and everything. This is a very harmless movie directed by J. Lee Thompson, produced by Golan and Globus, but inexplicably, for me anyway, marketed as a Chuck Norris movie rather than what they should have marketed it as, which was a pulp adventure comedy starring Oscar winner Louis Gossett Jr. and Melanie Anderson from Flash Gordon. This isn't a Chuck Norris movie, so it would not necessarily appeal to his fans. There's one scene that was probably as part of his contract where he had to do some martial arts, and he does those high kicks.
And it shows, it's so shoot in. I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, it's like less than a minute, I think, of martial arts in this movie.
And it's not even his best martial arts work.
Yeah, it just sort of looked. There's a running gag throughout the movie about how he can't shoot a gun straight or something like that, but he does manage to get one guy one time. It's okay. The movie came out at a time when Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones character were, for lack of a better word, they were trending, I guess, if you want to call it that. There was a whole bunch of knockoffs and rip-offs produced around that time. Everybody was doing this, not just Canon. Canon, obviously they did their Alan Quatermain series, King Solomon's Mines and all that. And a lot of stuff that other people were doing was very much rip-offs of Raiders.
Let's not forget about Treasure of the Four Crowns. We just know that Canon was the one studio that was most responsible for all of the Indiana Jones knockoffs. I mean, for Christ's sake, they did 4 knockoff movies.
Actually, I think this one is the best one they did.
It's the best one.
I mean, they've got a good cast here. I mean, Louis Gossett Jr., he's good in everything. He's another one of these guys who's like, he has no pretensions. If you want him, he will come. It doesn't matter that he has an Oscar, and he'll just do it. He'll do the job. And I think he makes a good team here. Unfortunately, Chuck Norris, he's a very skilled martial artist. I remember in my research, I was looking at Bruce Lee stuff, and he was in a Bruce Lee movie from a long time ago.
Way of the Dragon, 1971.
Yeah, but he was also, I believe he was also had a small part in Enter the Dragon, and he was also in the Chinese Connection. I think he played various goons in these movies, getting into the big brawl fights and everything, right?
Right.
But he didn't have his beard. He didn't have his trademark mustache or beard thing going on. So he really wasn't easy to spot. He just kind of sort of looked like a young man with, sandy blonde hair. So, he was like the one white guy that proved to be a match for Bruce Lee or something like that. And he becomes a big star toward the end. After Bruce Lee died, right? So you're getting into the mid to late 70s. He starts appearing in movies as a lead, and then he gets really big at the beginning of the 80s. I remember Forced Vengeance being a big deal when it came out. Well, then you also had Silent Rage, The Octagon. Silent Rage is my favorite Chuck Norris movie, mainly because it has a great story. I love that story. Also, Code of Silence.
Which was like one of the few, I think, if not only non-canon film that he did in the 80s, which was his best. I mean, you'd say Silent Rage is his best movie. I'll give you that. I think Code of Silence is his best movie. Well, Silent Rage was Columbia Pictures, right? Yes, that was Columbia. So that wasn't. So I guess we're saying.
Who did that? Did Gary Sherman do that by any chance? Did Gary Sherman direct Silent Rage?
Yeah, Gary Sherman did do that one. I remember.
And Gary Sherman wound up directing another movie that Melody Anderson was in called Dead and Buried, horror movie.
I got that one.
I got that one too. I got it on Blu-ray. It's one of my favorites. Melody Anderson. I mentioned to you. She was one of my gorgeous. She is such a gorgeous woman. Not the greatest actress in the world. It's kind of hard though. I mean, I don't know, for some reason her dialogue in the movie, most of her dialogue in Firewalker seems like it's been dubbed over by her later in the studio. It doesn't feel like it was recorded there on location for some reason. Maybe she has a very small voice, so they had to like overdub her.
Punch it up in post, as they say.
Yeah, and I mean, like, she's so gorgeous, and the thing is, you can tell, and this is my central complaint about Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is there to look strong. He's not there to speak. He has if you listen to Chuck Norris, he has a very soft voice. He does not have a commanding, like, stage theater voice, if you will. He has a very kind of small voice. If you listen to him in Invasion USA, he's almost half whispering all his dialogue, you know? So he's kind of like speaking. He's not really projecting. And here he is up against Louis Gossett Jr. as a big, thunderous, mighty voice. And then they want to put him together with Melody in the movie, and she's trying, you can tell that she's trying to generate some chemistry between the two of them, and he seems kind of uncomfortable with it. It's unusual, because he's the star of this movie.
According to canon, he's the star of the movie. I mean, I honestly think Lou Gossett Jr. is the star of the movie.
We
discussed this.
Yeah.
I
Mayonnaise,
like Lou Gossett's role.
You know?
I mean, Lou Gossett did some of his best work in the 80s after he won the Oscar, and Firewalker's no exception. He knew what kind of movie he was getting into, but he didn't care. I mean, he was like, hey, let's do a buddy movie with Chuck Norris. I get a paycheck, and I get to have a good time.
Yeah. And I think Melody Anderson said she had a really good time on this movie. She loved working with the and she was surprised because she actually got paid for this job, because she'd heard so many terrible stories about Golan and Globus not paying people.
The only story I ever heard, like they've only ever said, was America 3000. Lori Landon was the only one who bitched about not getting paid, because they had, like, it was something in 1986. It was like over 40 movies that went to theaters. That was which is unheard of.
That was probably the height of their. Actually, this movie did make money. It just didn't make enough to be a big hit. So they considered it. I was what was I looking at? I think I finished reading the book Wired, written by Bob Woodward, about John Belushi. Mm-hmm. He was talking about how Hollywood saw turning a profit, and the way they saw it was a movie has to make back its budget, then it has to make it back again, and then it has to make half of it for it to be profitable. So if you're spending $10 million on a movie, it would have to make 25 to be profitable.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
so what do we know about Firewalker? What was it made for? $5 million, probably?
Not actually. Whatever it was made for. I mean, obviously it looked really good. The quality of it was good. It did not look cheap. It looked like money was spent to me.
The only parts I thought looked cheap were the cave the cave scene at the end with the bubbling water and everything like that. It
doesn't have the budget information listed here. It only has the box office, 11.8 million, I think.
So yeah, I mean, let's just say on the back end, let's say the movie cost $3 million to make. Okay, then it turned a profit.
I can't imagine. Well, wasn't Chuck Norris one of their big deals, and whatever his salary was might have been built into the budget. And also, Louis Gossett Jr. in '86 did still cost money. I mean, he still cost money, and Melody probably cost money too. And they had John Rhys Davies in this thing, fresh off of Raiders. A bunch of people actually in the cast that I recognized had to have cost money. So I would say maybe somewhere between 7 and 10 million.
Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe between 7 and 10 million, just because of all the names that were in this movie.
So if it only made 11 million back, that's not a hit. That's not a hit. It made its money back, but nothing more.
But then you got to also remember the reason these movies. Oh, got it. 8 million.
8 million. Hey.
8 million. You got it. And it made almost 12.
And it made almost 12. So not a big hit.
Okay. So anyway, what I was saying is, one of the main problems with canon, why these movies couldn't break, was because they weren't getting distributed by major studios. Now, You remember the whole thing that MGM was releasing their movies up until the Bolero fiasco, and after that, they struck out on their own. Now, a couple of movies were distributed by bigger studios like TriStar, a couple through HBO.
Yeah.
But then you have movies like Firewalker, which were completely self-distributed. They weren't playing, like, let's just say 1986, okay? So what was a big 1986 movie that you can think of?
Aliens. Of course.
Okay, so that's
The Fly.
Okay, so there we go. There's your thing. So let's say Aliens is going to open in 1,500 theaters. It's in the 80s, of course, so we're going to lower the number. Let's just say Aliens is going to open in 1,500 theaters. A movie like Firewalker is probably going to open in 1/3 of that amount.
Right. Okay.
Due to the lack of money to produce film prints to all these other theaters to do bookings. So
Right.
that was Canon's big issue. If they would have had somebody else distributing their movies for them, like MGM, then maybe their movies could have actually turned a better profit. But because they had to do it all on their own, damn near none of them made money.
You would think that kids would want to see this because it's really, I mean, there's nothing in this movie that's graphic, really.
There's nothing. This is like, hey, kids, this is a movie you can take your kids to see.
It's pulp. I mean, this is the kind of stuff my wife loves. My wife loves this kind of stuff. She loves pulp adventure stuff. Chuck Norris has one face, and in that face is another fist. So, I mean, like, I like to see him with guns. I like to see him blow people away, and I like to see him beat the shit out of people. But he doesn't have, or Bronson even. Bronson has more charm than Chuck Norris, you know?
I mean, Bronson. The thing is, Bronson was actually an actor. That was the whole thing, though. He only started doing the exploitation trash because he needed money.
That's true.
I mean, and then
Jay Lee worked with Charles Bronson a lot.
I was just going to say that I think this is the only. Was this the only J. Lee Thompson film that Chuck Norris worked with him on? I think this was the only one.
It might have been. And J. Lee Thompson was like this old school British director. He was the guy that William Friedkin based the director on in The Exorcist. The director that's directing Ellen Burstyn's movie inside the movie, because she plays an actress working on a movie in Washington, D.C., that drunken director, the drunken British director, is based on J. Lee Thompson. Actually, it was William Peter Blatty actually based him on that, because William Peter Blatty made a movie, he wrote a movie that J. Lee Thompson directed back in the late 60s. John Goldfarb, Please Come Home, I think was the name of the movie, 1965. And the screenplay was written by William Peter Blatty. Now, J. Lee Thompson, he did 10 to Midnight. That's one of the great non-Death Wish movies that Bronson did.
That's my favorite Bronson movie, man.
And he did also Murphy's Law with Bronson, Death Wish 4, which, Death Wish 4, you know.
It's not bad. It is not a bad movie.
It's just that, number one, we killed Audrey from National Lampoon's Vacation in the movie. And then we kill another girl who shows even the slightest interest in Paul Kersey. I mean, like, Jill Ireland is the only one who doesn't die and is one of his girlfriends in those Death Wish movies.
Well, because it was written into her contract, she can't die.
Firewalker, this is a lot of fun. I actually, of the two movies that we're reviewing tonight, it's probably my favorite because I do remember this one from a while back. This is another one that had a premiere on television as part of an MGM package, actually. MGM's premiere movie network thing that they would have on syndicated stations, usually Channel 11 over here in the in New York City.
Channel 9 for us.
But they showed this movie, and it was, again, I feel like there should have been more comedy. There's only a couple of moments in there that had me laughing out loud, and they were mainly Louis Gossett Jr.
Yeah,
she's the one who made me laugh. You know,
Chuck Norris was like, he was not funny at all. There were
he tried to spread his wings. He tried to do something, and he found he couldn't. So there you go.
I mean, and then he did Top Dog in '95.
Yes.
And I actually saw that piece of shit in theaters.
Didn't his brother direct that? And
Aaron Norris.
Yeah.
Aaron Norris, man. Oh God, I fucking hate it. I can't. That is like if people ask me, what's the most embarrassing movie you paid money to go see? Top Dog. I actually paid money to see it.
Now, oh my God, you paid to see that? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Exactly.
You were giving me shit about something. You were giving me shit about some movie that I saw in the theater. I forgot.
But you know what?
You saw Top Dog. I'm sorry, but that's staying in the episode.
You know what? I stand by my convictions. I was a 13-year-old kid. I was just discovering canon and Chuck Norris films, and I'm like, okay.
Jesus Christ, even I wouldn't. I saw what's that one with Ali Sheedy and Lance Henriksen about the killer dog?
Man's Best Friend.
Man's Best Friend. Now I saw that in the theater because it was really good, actually.
Yeah, great movie.
Who did that? Rachel Talalay, right?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, you're right. Rachel Talalay did do that movie. I got to look it up now.
She's that one who did the Nightmare on Elm Street movie, Freddy's Dead, I think.
Yeah.
And she directs Doctor Who. Okay, one more thing I wanted to say about Firewalker. The editing in this movie is incredibly sloppy.
Yes.
And the script, as produced, is underwritten. There's no reason given for Melody's interest in gold. There's very little backstory on Chuck and Louis Gossett Jr. and their relationship or whatever, or why we're supposed to care. Melody, for some reason, toward the end of it, tells us she's psychic, and nothing ever comes of it. John Rhys Davies appears toward the end of the movie, and then he disappears, which is a very interesting thing, because like she asked Chuck Norris, she says, "Do you think we'll ever see him again?" He says, "No." But it's weird. There's very little in the way of payoff for the movie. So there's a lot of like premises that are introduced and then abandoned for no reason at all. I feel like this is one of those things. I remember M. Emmett Walsh talking about working with Golan Globus when he was working on Blade Runner. He was interviewed for the book, for the Blade Runner book, and he said working on Blade Runner was very much like working for Golan and Globus, because they would pick up a script, and if they didn't have time or money to shoot, they would just rip out every other page. That's how I feel like this movie was made, like somebody ripped out every other page.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I don't like about this movie is that tacky ending.
There's an ending which has this kind of, I don't know, they're all like having drink. It has a Trading Places ending. It's very weird. They're on a exotic island. It's like, looking good, Louis, feeling good, Billy Ray.
But it has that General Chang from the beginning of the movie.
Yes, who goes,
we meet again, gentlemen.
That guy was in Manchurian Candidate. I remember the original Manchurian Candidate, because I remember that face and those teeth.
It's just like they could have ended it on a happier note, but they had to do that hammy ass ending with General Chang again. That was kind of stupid. Like, how the fuck does he know they're there? You know, I guess it's just meant to, stay tuned for Firewalker 2. I guess it's time to move on to the further adventures of Tennessee Buck, which is obviously, I mean, just even looking at the credits, it's obviously an Indiana Jones ripoff just in the credits alone. And this is a movie where we do not know a lot about the production history of this one. We don't.
I know a little bit about it, but I recommended it to you. You had not seen it. Had you heard of it before?
Never heard of it.
Okay, now this is a movie they played this movie in heavy rotation on HBO in the late 80s, early 90s. It's a movie that's extremely hard to find. You managed to find a laser. How was your Laserdisc, by the way? How was the quality? Was it?
Oh, it was. I mean, okay. It was one of those image laser discs that was taken from a VHS master, because the same master that was used for VHS was used for Laserdisc, only you get a slight step up in quality. But
well, I bet you it was a damn sight better than the one I have, which is this horrible rip from an old VHS.
This one, though, it looked perfectly fine. It played perfectly fine. Had no laser rot. You could tell it was shot in 1.8.5 because there was some crop job in there. Like, you know how certain movies are filmed open matte and you can tell? Yeah. Yeah, this one I could definitely
You mean
follow.
This one's... Wait. You looked at it, was it widescreen or was it full frame?
No, it's a full frame movie, but you could tell it's one of those movies that needs to be seen in widescreen because there's a little bit of information missing on the left hand and the right.
Oh, okay.
Right
so
side
they ripped it off
where you're missing some things, some shots that should be there.
Well, it was released on VHS Media, I believe.
Yep.
Released it on VHS and Laserdisc. You said Image. This is a Sarlui Diamant production, and I believe Playboy might have also, either Playboy or Penthouse might have had a hand in the production.
I would say Penthouse, due to the simple fact of the scene where the girls are oiling her up.
Well, I was thinking because you have Kathy Shower, who was a Playboy centerfold. And you also have a couple of other people in there who were definitely Playboy. And it's basically an excuse to look at topless native girls. And these native girls are very well endowed. So I was thinking it could have been Penthouse because of that, because they were very much into well endowed. But Playboy was too. Also, I mean, who doesn't like looking at a picture of a girl with big tits? Unless Well, what I know about this is that David Keith was originally just an actor on the film, but he took over production shortly after shooting started. He rewrote the script and directed the movie. So he basically, I think, because he had a lot of pull, I guess, with the producers, and I guess whoever was making it wasn't really making it well. So maybe that's why we have such a change in the tone of this movie when we get to like roughly the hour mark in it.
Yeah, because
maybe 55 minutes.
You messaged me last night and you said, "Beware, this movie takes a turn." And
yeah,
I'm like,
because
okay.
you think you're looking at some kind of comedy because it's funny. We have comic relief. We have some, we're somewhere in Borneo with the spoiled little rich girl played by Kathy Shower and her husband, and they hire the famous Tennessee Buck played by David Keith to lead a hunting expedition. And you think it's going to be a comedy of errors or a culture clash or something like that. And you think it's maybe even it has like the lighthearted joviality of like a Hope and Crosby movie where they're on the road or something, right?
Right.
And then this happened. I mean, it's weird. It's such a weird...
Like literally out of left fucking field. So this movie just took the the biggest 180 I've ever seen. It went from lighthearted comedy to damn near a fucking horror movie.
Yeah. It's like Cannibal Holocaust. It's like, I remember initially telling you it's kind of a combination of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Cannibal Holocaust, sort of.
Which is funny because my friend who was watching it last night, I'm telling him, hey, maybe we should watch Cannibal Holocaust after this.
I mean, okay, they capture them, these dangerous island natives who have taken over, because he has all these, I guess David Keith has all these friends, these topless women that he likes to screw around with and dance with and all that stuff, and they're all having a good time, and then these horrible natives come in who are cannibals or something, and they take them hostage. They cut off her husband's head, and then
that was just, what the fuck, really?
Yeah, and then the head of their tribe rapes Kathy Shower, and I was so taken aback by that, because it wasn't shot to be, I don't know, I guess it wasn't shot to be exploitative, because it was all done in like one close-up of her face basically, but you know what the fuck's going on.
Right.
It's fucking terrible.
One of the things that made me so mad about this movie is that she gets in the romance with Buck, and I'm like, your husband's killed,
I know, his head was chopped off.
His corpse isn't even cold yet.
Yes.
And you're already...
She doesn't even wait for the body to get cold, and already she's like... I mean, but David Keith, good-looking guy. You can't really fault her for that, anyway. But she's got, like, these... it's so weird, too, because... actually, she's not a terrible actress, She's better than what you would find in a Playboy centerfold, but you get a look at those tits, and you're like, oh, my God, she's a fucking centerfold model with those tits. You know she is.
As my dad always said, if her tits were brains, she'd be a genius.
Yeah. I mean, we started off light. This looks like, the movie looks like a cheap Indiana Jones knockoff, but it gets interesting and dark, like I said. Tennessee Buck has to save her. They get into the only problem I have with David Keith's direction is he holds on to some shots a little too long.
Yeah, I know.
Like the whole raping, like the rape scene goes on way too long.
The oiling, no, get this. Here's a kicker. I read a little bit on some production history. The oiling up scene actually goes on for like 2 minutes. They're like, okay, David, you can direct the movie. Okay, we'll let you direct the movie. You'll have a nice credit, and but you gotta linger a little bit on those oiling up shots. Okay, and he's like, sure, fine. They cut that out of the U.S. version. They said on the international version, which was released in like Germany or a couple of other countries, the full scene exists, but they said copies of it are impossible to find. So
I thought, it's very interesting that you can't find this. You can't even find it. Was never even put on DVD. It's a very hard movie to find. The quality varies if you try to look for it. It's available on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. It just looks like crap. The dialogue isn't synced up. It doesn't look too good. You probably saw the best copy that anyone's seen in recent years.
I saw it the best way you can see it. Oh man, Kathy Showers, her endowment's bigger than Harvard, man. That's one beautiful set of knockers. I'm gonna say that right now. And what got me, like you said, she can actually act.
Also, I think they're real, too. I mean, they look real. They have gravity. I mean, there's gravity is involved. Definitely. That's how you can tell when a woman isn't real, is when she's defying gravity. This one isn't defying gravity.
No. I will tell you this. There was one scene in that movie. I
think those, to quote House, those love apples were handcrafted by God.
Now, you see, the one thing that made me laugh, and I'd say me and my friend were watching it. I laughed so hysterically. I texted the line to myself. It says, hey, Buck, how does anyone shoot like that, especially while drinking? It takes a lot of practice. 4 to 5 hours a day, 7 days a week. You practice shoot that much? No, I drink that much.
Good dialogue.
I mean, there was some good dialogue in that movie. There was some very good dialogue.
Now, didn't David Keith go on to direct another movie, a very popular horror movie, actually, well, cult horror movie called
The Curse. The Curse. That's speaking of The Curse.
I'm sorry. He didn't do The Gate. He directed The Curse.
Remember, none of the Curse movies were related to each other. Like, they were all standalone sequels. As a matter of fact, Curse...
Actually, well, he did The Curse first, and then he did Tennessee Buck.
Yeah, they were both released the same year, though, 1987. And
that was probably why
ironically enough, now here's what gets me, okay? This is what the funniest shit of all, okay? The Curse exists on Blu-ray, okay?
Right.
The Curse was done by Transworld Entertainment, as was Tennessee Buck. Why the fuck can't Shout Factory get this movie out?
Transworld is one of those really kind of bottom of the line. They're like a notch above Prism, right?
Right. I mean,
and he had some incredible work here. I mean, like, he has a very weird sporadic career around this time. He did Officer and Gentleman. He did Lords of Discipline. He did a movie called Independence Day, which is not the same as the alien sci-fi movie. He did Firestarter, which is a classic with Drew Barrymore. He did a fantastic movie. Only 3 years. He didn't work for 3 years until he did White of the Eye, which is an incredible movie that Donald Cammell directed. And then he directed The Curse and Further Adventures of Tennessee Buck. After that, he does Heartbreak Hotel, where he plays Elvis, and he has the classic immortal line in that, "I want a cheeseburger." 2 years later, he doesn't work again until The Two Jakes, where he plays a detective who pisses his pants when Jack Nicholson puts a gun in his face. He's had a weird sporadic career. I wonder if he was plagued with substance abuse or something.
They never said, but you look at the movies this guy's done now, he has not done anything that went to the theater. I think the last theatrical movie he did was Daredevil, because
we saw him last year. Remember, we did the Carrie special. He was in the TV version of the TV remake of
right
Carrie.
But that was like 2001, 2002.
Yeah, it was like back just after 9/11. You know,
I mean, yeah, he still works, but he's not like he's not an A-lister. It could have been a little better, but it could have been
it's
hell
a
of
better
lot
movie
worse.
than Meridian.
It's a much better movie than Meridian.
And a much better movie than Boxing Helena.
Much better movie than Boxing Helena.
And Gothic.
And Gothic. Any of the
I was toying with the idea of putting this on my Meridian meter, but no, it's of a different quality.
Yeah, it's like, it's not, it's a B movie, okay? But it really doesn't feel like a B movie. Like, it has some B movie elements, but at the end of the day, it looks like it's a very well-made, cheap movie.
Yeah.
And why this isn't on DVD or Blu-ray simply is astounding, because there is a fan. I mean, we
don't even have like a European limited.
Nothing.
European release.
I mean,
maybe it's Sarlui and Diamant. Maybe they have problems or something.
You as my co-host have shown that you are a fan of this movie, because you're the one that told me about it, and I had no idea about this movie even existing. If not for you, I would have never seen it. And I'm glad I bought it. I spent the money to get a copy of it. And you know what? I'm glad it's going to stay in my collection, because at least I get to have something cool to show people. Hey, guess what? This really good B movie is not on DVD yet. It's not on Blu-ray. So before you guys all say streaming is the next big thing, just remember there is a ton of movies out there that will probably never be on streaming or never be on home video.
Okay, this is an abomination, and I'm not even referring to the movie. I'm referring to what was done to this case. It was a Embassy Home Entertainment, just regular slipcover that had been cut and put into this clamshell, probably to fit into a video store's lot. Back in those days, if you open this one up, and we look at it's hard to get it open, I guess. Can we see it? We can see the label. As you can see, this is a Blockbuster title, but it wasn't Blockbuster that did this, I'm pretty sure of that, because Blockbuster really didn't have that policy. I suspect that this store purchased this from a lot of videotapes that were being sold or auctioned off by a video store business. And again, we have a classic sticker here. Just to remind, please rewind. Thanks. The end. Now, I bought this up because the store was selling it as a previously viewed title, and the policy for Blockbuster was that these older back catalog titles would be sold if they didn't get any rentals. And when you scanned the thing, it would show up in the computer, and it would show how many times it's been rented in the last 30 days or something, or even 2 months. And if it said none or 1 or maybe 2, then it was consigned to the chopping block. So I purchased this for, like, I don't know, what, $1? This is, can we see the back cover? This was James Cameron's first feature-length movie as a director. James Cameron would go on to do such incredible movies after Lance Henriksen is in this too. It was like one of his first movies as a lead, because Lance Henriksen we had seen before. He was in Dog Day Afternoon, and he was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but this was like his first big lead movie, working with James Cameron, who he would wind up working with on I believe his later movies like Terminator, Aliens, that kind of stuff. And from what I understand, Terminator, before he got Schwarzenegger, he was actually considering Lance Henriksen to play that role. But it's not a terrible movie. A lot of people hate it because they just don't want to put it up against James Cameron's other movies. But as a movie, produced in Italy, which is really funny. Because he was trying to direct his Italian crew, and they couldn't speak a word of English, and he couldn't speak a word of Italian. But anyway, it's a fun, stupid exploitation movie, and it actually begins. The first scene of the movie begins underwater, looking at a shipwreck. So it's almost like Cameron came full circle, going to Titanic. Can we see the spine? See what this horrible, what they did to this box, which is absolutely terrible. It's unforgivable. Anyway, thanks for watching.